don't know how else to describe it.
This chicken finger Monday.
Those things are damn good.
Early into that lunch, I knew something was off.
It didn't really hit me right away. And then it really hit me.
The lemonade was contaminated.
911.
All of our students, they're all pooping.
Start the show!
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt, and everybody's pooping.
Yeah, man, dude, that was the opening to the trailer for season 2 of American Vandal. Did you ever finish season 1?
I never watched season 1, no, and it's all definitely on my list.
I mean, lucky you, Bryce watched it twice, so that the show is covered. But I watched it all once, and it was just wonderful. If you haven't seen it, watch American Vandal season 1. Season 2 looks like it takes place. I'm assuming, Bryce, new school, new rules.
It's a new school, but it's still the same director, the same filmmaker. Peter Maldonado is back
as himself, as his character. Okay, yeah. Awesome. That's interesting. So I wonder if that actually does open up a number of expert testimonies from the previous season or whatever.
Possibly.
Because theoretically, he still knows all the people from high school. Maybe he could bring in, like, I needed a fresh pair of eyes, so I got so-and-so. And then we're like, oh, that person's back from that previous season.
Possibly. September 14th.
Fantastic.
Very soon. Very soon.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on to our primary target. Oh, he's Brian Brusher.
Yeah, also I'm here.
Hey, Cynthia Littleton at Variety has an article out called How Hollywood is Racing to Catch Up with Netflix. There's a lot of interesting points we're going to talk about here. But I noticed that TechCrunch wrote up this article under the title, Disney to Call Streaming Service Disney Play. Because at some point she quotes Bob Iger referring to the service in an earnings call as Disney Play. So that's also news. She says in this article, Netflix's meteoric rise is all that media moguls could be talking about at last month's conclave of Allen and Company. This is a conference in Sun Valley, Idaho, that a bunch of mucky mucks go to every year. And direct to consumer is the new buzzword. If it replace over the top streaming service, if it cross those out in your buzzword notebook and add DTC, direct to consumer. Direct to consumer is apparently why Disney wanted Fox, why Comcast wanted Fox, why AT&T wanted Time Warner. Bob Iger called the planned launch of a suite of DTC services, quote, the biggest priority of the company during the calendar year of 2019. Now, here's the thing. Direct to consumer is basically saying we want to do what Netflix does, what Hulu does, what Prime Video does. You have to invest in high-end content in addition to the stuff you already make, right? You have to have some originals. You have to give up licensing revenue for that content. So, for instance, we talk a lot about what's Netflix going to do when it loses Disney content. What's Disney going to do without the $300 million they get from Netflix for that content? And don't forget syndication and licensing out and all that sort of thing. It puts downwards pressure on carriage fees because suddenly the cable companies are not going to want to pay you as much if they're like, you're holding some of your best stuff for your own thing. We're not going to pay you as much for your channel. And it means you have to invest in infrastructure, which, of course, is one of the reasons Disney bought a controlling interest in BAM Tech, which provides the back end for MLB, NHL, HBO Now, etc. The big challenge, Brian, is to make DTC services as compelling as Netflix without undermining those existing cable channels too much. You don't want people to suddenly just stop watching the Disney Channel, or that whole business model becomes bankrupt too fast.
2 words blasted into my mind with neon force, like Dirk Diggler's name in Neon Lights. I just saw mushy middle. How do we get a taste of what Netflix has, which, by the way, it got by utterly rejecting all of the established ways to do things, by breaking all the rules, by buying all their own content, by not having any licenses for anything that would possibly limit their ability to please their customers, but while also serving our previous overlords of the last 40 to 50 years in cable carriage fees and all this other stuff. And if there's one thing about branding I know is that mushy middle never wins. You never do well in the mushy middle. Now, that's not to say that there's not territory in between. They can carve up whatever that mushy, soft, doughy, crappy territory is in there. But the strongest we already have a number one player in Netflix. The number two player is now Amazon Prime. Number three is Hulu, which means they're divvying up slots 6 through 10 with limitations and caveats. And I'm going to say that even if you don't have, who's the number four player? Maybe a Crackle or some such?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Let's take a little side jag here before we'll circle back to your mushy point. There are more of these than you realize. She documents these in this Variety article. Warner has one called Drama Fever. We've talked about that one before. It's Korea Films and TV show. There's CBS All Access. There's Showtime and HBO Now and Stars. There's one called NBC Sports Gold that gets you soccer, cycling, rugby, etc. There's the upcoming Disney Play in 2019. Warner's Filmstruck. We've talked about that from time to time. That has Turner Classic Movies, curated movies. There's Noggin out there for kids. Lionsgate's Laugh Out Loud, which is curated by Kevin Hart. There's ESPN Plus, DC Universe coming this fall. And of course, we've talked previously about Fox Nation, the extra Fox News programming. So there's kind of two kinds here. There's the plus, like ESPN Plus and Fox Nation, which is like, oh, if you love our main program, add a little bit extra. And then there's things like Filmstruck and Noggin and CBS All Access, which are just straight plays of here's a new thing. Then I feel like the ones that are less mushy are the HBO Nows and Showtimes, which are like, this is exactly what you get on TV, except not on TV.
Right. Well, and specifically, those are substitution bar gambits, right? Like, I don't know anybody, because if you have cable, you have HBO, and you have HBO Go with it, so there's no need. You would never buy HBO Now while having HBO Go. You would do one or the other. Same thing with Showtime and same thing with Stars. Those are replacement services. So I feel like those are safe. Like those are, let's capture bandwidth outside of our established relationship.
It's the easiest play to make because you have the least threat to your existing money funnel, which, I mean, HBO Now, I don't remember the exact numbers, but something like 40 million cable subscribers and 5 million or so online. They know those numbers are going in the opposite direction. That's a lot of money still coming in through cable, so they don't want to abandon that.
Well, and so I think patient zero for the mushy middle is CBS Online, because CBS Online has started right from the beginning with a lot of trouble with people like, wait a minute, you want me to pay the whole thing for crap that's already on CBS and one show, a Star Trek show? No, I don't think so. However, as that back catalog
those
grows,
people who don't like the Good Wife spinoff anyway, it's only right.
Exactly. Like they're getting smarter about it though, because they're figuring out like no.
Well, Good Wife was first actually.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, because Star Trek kept getting delayed.
But the longer that back catalog list gets, the more interesting an offering that becomes. And then it becomes a kind of thing that's where the new question 3, 4, 5 years from now is, are you already a fan of CBS? Would you like more versions of all the things that you already love? We now have a clubhouse. It took us a while to build it out, and now it's there. And to be honest, it was the same way with Netflix. You know, Netflix's first Netflix original was Lilyhammer, and I don't think anybody was kicking down the door to go see Lilyhammer.
They made their name on other people's content.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So CBS All Access, I think, will figure out a way to do this. But everything else, I feel like they have a chance to win by being so hyper-focused. But the problem is when it comes to kids' entertainment, I mean, Noggin, let's say they have all the premium Noggin licenses. If you're buying it, you're not a kid. You're an adult buying it for your kid, and you don't really care the premium licenses or any of that stuff. I don't know. Maybe one time your kid saw. You know what's funny is I'm thinking about my kids having seen a Kipper, but I think Kipper's on Amazon Prime, so it doesn't even matter. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. This all seems like a disaster in the making. This all seems like a way to please the board of directors and your shareholders by saying, everybody's asking, what are you going to be like Netflix? And then you say some words that make it sound like we have a plan to be like Netflix. And you're not going to be. You're not going to make it because Netflix got to where it is, not because they happen to be DTC, and that's not a magic buzzword, whether they try to make it that or not. They did it because they were first and because they did something nobody else was doing, and they did it at the right time when the infrastructure and the technology made it possible, and they made bold decisions that these people, their hands are tied. I don't see how any of these are going to be good ideas for in the next 10 years.
Well, they have to do it though, right? Like whether they're doing it to please their shareholders or not, just forget that for a moment. They can't not do it because cable's going away. They need to be in position to say, we have the new thing for the new people. That nobody believes that cable is going to continue to be the funnel of money that it is now. And you don't want to be the company that waited too long and then suddenly you don't have the cash flow to make something like this happen. So it's smart. And in many ways, they're way ahead of the music industry in that they're already putting these things together while cord cutting is still small so that they can potentially be there when the boat starts to rise really fast. When you say there's no way they can win, I disagree. I think there is a way. It's just much more difficult because Netflix had the luxury of having two options. We fail or we do our thing, right? They didn't. So it was like, well, we don't want to fail and go out of business. So let's do our thing. And just, they didn't have to worry about losing another revenue stream. In fact, they could continue to lose money and do continue to lose money because they're in the startup phase. Whereas this is where your shareholder thing definitely plays in. The shareholders are like, yeah, Disney, we want you to create that, but you don't have the luxury of losing money for 10 years. We don't want you to lose the money you have now too fast. Everybody knows you're going to lose the money on the existing cable subscriptions and the licensing is going to change. So you have to do the harder thing of picking when to lose that money, because it has to show up on the other side. And that's where you're absolutely right, Brian, is you have to be, that's harder. You have to be way more flexible and way more right to make that work. I guess where I disagree is I think they can do it. And I think the only ones who can do it are the big companies like a Disney, maybe a CBS, or the ones who have the luxury of saying we can get away with a service that's a direct replacement so that it's easy. As one tide rises, our numbers rise there and they naturally go down in the other place. Yeah. Whereas I will Disney, if they tried to make Disney a replacement service suddenly, they'll get in much bigger trouble with the cable companies than HBO and Showtime.
So, I don't know anything about the contracts that Disney has with cable companies. Here's what I do know. Of all the players, I think Disney has the best chance to crack into the top four. Easily start at fourth place, possibly overtake Hulu, possibly even overtake Amazon Prime, although I don't really believe that. In fact, here's a fun scenario. If the Disney Fox deal, imagine a universe where when they launched, because they cannot come in timidly into these waters. They have to come in and break the whole paradigm as we see it. If they came in and they said one service, two parts, you could buy just the Disney side of things or just the Fox side of things, or for $20 a month, you've got this for the grown-ups and this for the kids. And it's everything. You've got $20. We know it. Figure out what you want to cancel to make this happen. Like that could be one of those giant groundbreaking things that would change the game.
So why wouldn't you just do two services rather than two parts of one service?
You would, but I feel like, synergy, Tom. It's called synergy because if they bought...
I guess I see where you could bundle them and say like, hey, there's Fox Play available for $10 a month, and there's Disney Play for $10 a month, or you can get both for $15 and save some money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it is smart for them to keep them separate. Disney does mean kids to most people, but that's not what Disney Play is going to be. And that's going to be an interesting thing for them to navigate.
Well, and they're going to...
Disney Play is going to mean Marvel. It's going to mean Star Wars. It's going to mean, and it's going to mean the kid stuff.
But
too.
if they're also going to do a Fox thing, then that's going to undercut, because I feel like in one timeline, they could launch and say Disney is for the whole family. We got this for the mom and dad. We got this for the kids. And that's a fine narrative. But to sell me that and then also say, but also for the adults, we have Fox. And I was like, well, why are you even talking to me about the Fox and which parts are which or whatever? Like,
yeah, but that's like saying you can't have, FX or you can't have ABC Family and, I don't know, and the Disney, I don't know.
Well, you can't have a simple narrative with that, is what I'm saying. The simple
most
narrative
people will forget
is
that they're owned by the same company. So maybe you shouldn't bundle them and say, there's Disney Play, great service for the whole family. Correct. You'll never have a problem on Disney Play with something weird coming up. And then you have we're not the same company. Fox Play.
Right.
And Fox Play has all the great FX shows you love and,
I think
programming.
that's actually probably the better idea now that I think about it. It will be tempting to synergize those things, but you just convinced me of my own argument. Yes, keeping them as separate brands would probably be the smarter way to go.
And honestly, they have the firepower to compete with Prime Video and Netflix, because they have the better known franchises, right? Netflix had to create House of Cards out of whole cloth. Prime Video had to create Man in the High Castle out of nothing. And it's other, I almost said Schindler's List. That's not the name of it. Now I can't, Bosch. What's the other
Garry
one?
Shandling's List.
Anyway,
it's
they had to create their hits from nothing, right? Netflix was able to strike a deal with Disney early enough to get the Marvel properties, but they had to be lesser known Marvel properties. Whereas I don't think Disney's going to have that problem. They're going to have to balance different things, which is we're decided we're not going to bring our animated Star Wars show straight over to the Disney Play. We're going to have that on cable television because we still need to pump that, but they'll be able to have back episodes be on Disney Play, right? Whereas the actual Star Wars movies, they won't, because those are tied up with Turner because they really needed that licensing money a couple of years ago and decided it was worth it. So those will come over later. It's complex and interesting to watch all this. The fact of the matter is, if CBS All Access can outperform what the experts thought, which it has, I have to believe Disney Play is going to do fine.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious how they're going to position Disney Play, whether it is for the whole family or for the kids, or
I think it'll be for the whole family. That's what it seems to be from the leaks of what kind of shows are. They're doing a live action Star Wars. Let's shoot them up.
Here's my big question is, do you, let's say you're in charge of Disney Play at launch, do you launch with the entire Disney Vault archive available, all the children's shows for the last 70 years or whatever? Do you launch with that available and that's your USP, your unique sales proposition? Or do you do what they do where it's like, okay, well, we've did that and we got a lot of people signed up, but we're noticing after 3 months they've watched all the movies and they're dropping off? Or do you do what Disney has done in the past, which is rotate out, kind of like they do on Disney, the cable channel, show, like now we're showing Wall-E for a little bit. Now we're showing Snow White for a little bit. Which of those two plays? Do you think you rotate out your own stock to keep it fresh? Or do you think you come in like
I don't know that that's your biggest sales proposition. Your biggest sales proposition is brand new shows from franchises you love that you can't see anywhere else. Plus all the hot new movies, all the Pixar movies, all the Star Wars movies that are recent, like Solo, all the Marvel movies that are recent, all the stuff that was on Netflix until now available on Disney Play. The archive catalog stuff is interesting. You could make a big splash by saying it's all there. But if you hold it back, I don't know that really moves the needle too much. It's more of a thing that could push it rather than something people will notice the absence of.
Well, if I do feel like just going from 0 to, I don't know how many movies are, let's say there's 100 of them, 0 to 100 movies, that becomes a value proposition instantly. Like the entire back catalog, except for Song of the South, available instantly on Disney Play.
I that's not how I'm seeing this.
Yeah,
I'm seeing this as kids. Hey, Disney Play with brand new originals plus the BFG and Rogue One and Moana and like hot new titles versus library stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. JC Calhoun says that even the Boomerang service from Cartoon Network, all the old Hanna-Barbera stuff, they window shows out. So he's not a fan of that whole scene.
Sometimes that's not a choice. That's a licensing issue where you already licensed them out. And so you try to grab where you can the licenses that you get, but you don't get them forever because you don't own them. Whereas Disney owns them, so they can actually decide not to license them out, but they have. The original trilogy of Star Wars movies are not going to be available on Disney Play because they sold them to Turner.
Yeah.
at least until like 2021 or something like that.
I mean, and who will be celebrating that moment when they get it in 2021?
Oh yeah, no, and that's why I think their focus is not on back catalog for this service as much as it is on fresh stuff, on new stuff.
Yeah, I guess the difference is like I can only speculate how good the fresh stuff is going to be or how excited I'll be about it, but I tangibly know how excited I am for the back catalog. So I think I have an inherent bias.
When I say
to
back
focus
catalog,
on...
I mean 20 years ago back catalog. Like,
sure,
the stuff that's on Netflix right now is the stuff they're going to be hitting you over the head with now on Disney Play.
Right. Yes.
So you know how much you like those, right?
Well, yes, and also the 20 years back catalog and the 50 years back catalog. Like I think what I'm trying to confess is I think I have a bias for what I'm familiar with. It's hard for me to speculate about how excited I'll be or how successful they'll be with a thing I don't know how good will be. Whereas I am familiar with the back catalog.
I get what you're saying, right? I just think in general, back catalog sounds better than it plays. Like, you want the new stuff. You want Thor Ragnarok if you're Netflix. Sure. You don't care as much about Iron Man 1. And Disney Play is going to have Thor Ragnarok. It's going to have Black Panther. It's going to have Captain Marvel.
I don't know, dude. Like one statement, like imagine, let's say it's, $20 a month or whatever. Like if you can say in one statement, imagine sitting down and watching all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in one sitting.
No, that's what I mean.
Kids
it plays better in sound than it does in practice.
Sure, but that's what matters when you're selling is how it sounds, not how it practices.
No, and I think you're right about the Marvel stuff. Like that makes a good marketing message, but generally speaking, I don't know. I think the better marketing message is here are the movies that you wanted to see but maybe missed in the theater or you want to watch again and now they're available here. I mean, because that's what Netflix was doing for a long time.
I am way less interested in that. The windowing.
Well, you're talking about you. I'm talking about what works in general.
Sure. That's fine. I'm not an expert in what works in general. I am an expert in what I'm interested in. I'm just thinking I'm not an expert either, but I look at HBO and I look at Starz and I look at Netflix and what are the things they're usually flogging in front of people? It's the newer stuff. Well, and likewise, I guess my whole point is if you want to be anything but fourth place Disney, you're going to have to do something that not Starz and all the other guys are doing. And one way to do that would be to just drop a nuclear. In fact, this is a good one for you guys in the audience, cordkillers@gmail.com. Which would you prefer, or how much would it matter to you if the content was windowed versus a complete back catalog?
All right, folks. The other thing you could do is head to patreon.com/cordkillers and help us out, because without you, we can't do it. If you're willing to go to patreon.com/cordkillers and give us $1, we'd love to have it because it means we'll be able to make the show better.
Yeah, not only that, but we also get to tell the truth. Have you noticed that there's no ads? We don't have to stop in the middle of the show and fake like we're in love with Hulu. That's a gift that you make possible to us. Sam Harris on the Sam Harris podcast has a 7-minute pitch where he explains why he does the Patreon model, why he does direct supporting, because he says, my show is in the middle of exploring the most fundamental questions of what it means to be a conscious and moral human being. And I can't do that if in the same breath I have to promise you a full night's sleep on a magic mattress that I've never seen before. And so likewise, you notice that there's no ads. That's because we hope that you guys provide value for value. If you get value out of our show, $1 an episode, that's all we ask. We totally made that phrase up. Stick it up your butt. Hardcore history.
That was invented by Dan Carlin.
Oh. You're challenging me.
I'm
Judas.
just saying, like
my co-host Judas. Thank you.
I really like Dan Carlin. Like, I don't want him to stick it up his butt. It sounds like it could hurt.
All right.
Let's talk about
you
how to
understand
watch.
satire. All right.
Hey, Netflix told TechCrunch it is testing the iTunes payment method. In other words, not doing it in 33 countries, specifically until September 30th. Some new or lapsed subscribers in selected markets across Europe, Latin America, and Asia will be directed to the Netflix website to renew their subscription rather than renewing it through the App Store. The test started with 10 countries in June, expanded to 33 on August 2nd, and they plan to run the test until the end of September. Back in May, Netflix stopped taking payments through Google Play. In both these situations, they're trying to get away from having to share not only the subscriber data, but the percentage that they share of money with the App Store.
Isn't it on iOS, on the Apple Store, isn't it straight up 30% everyone bar none get in line?
For subscriptions now, it's 30% for the first year and 15% for every year after that. So for a Netflix subscriber who signed up more than a year ago, Netflix only has to share 15% of their recurring monthly subscription.
But even that's 15% of 100 million is a lot of millions.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this on DTNS, and I kind of settled in my head. The way Apple looks at this is, hey, small app developer, you don't want to have to run a whole billing and subscription department for 30% the first year and 15% every year after. You won't have to. And if I'm a small app developer, I'm like, that sounds like a bargain to me. But if you're Netflix, you're like, yeah, no, we're cool. We have a very sophisticated billing and subscription management department. We don't need you to do it for us. How about an option for us? And Apple has always been like, one option for everybody. That's it.
So that is 100% correct on the technical side and the fulfillment side, the logistics side. But also, here's how doubly right you are. It's also true from a branding, a positioning, and a platform-driven side. Because when Netflix first started, they had a mailing list. They were sending DVDs by mail or whatever. But iOS had this mobile platform. They had all the users. They had the iTunes subscribers or whatever. So they essentially came in and they borrowed at a paid for rate. So think about quick branding. People always ask me this, so I'm gonna say it again real quick. When I was on the road, I was a touring nobody. I was Netflix fulfilling the DVDs by mail, right? I had the people who would book me for their shows, and I could fulfill them by showing up in real time, performing in my magic show or whatever. When I first started with Revision 3, I was borrowing an established platform that was 100 times bigger than my platform, and I showed up and I worked for it, and then I realized I wanted to continue to expand my brand, so I showed up on twit.tv for free week after week after week, and then eventually got paid $100 an episode to do frame rate week after week after week. Again, all of that a highly discounted rate. I was if my time has a certain value, all of that below market rates because I was borrowing other people's platforms. And then at some point, our platform became big enough that it didn't make sense to be doing everything at a reduced rate. So we went independent, and then and now we're at the point where we have the established platform. And so this is the same thing for Netflix. I think Netflix was borrowing the larger, more powerful platform of Apple. And I think they're at a place where they're testing, and I think testing is the right word for it. They're sort of peeking around the corner to see, is it worth it for us to be doing this reduced rate? Is there a reason we're setting $15 million a year on fire because we're assuming people won't follow us to, whose platform is bigger at this point?
Yeah, and it's an interesting method, an interesting time, because Netflix's subscription rates are flattening in the US. They're still rising internationally, but that's mostly because it's a brand new platform. So they're testing this internationally, which is where they actually need the highest acquisition. But I guess they're gambling that the marketing will be enough to make people go, where do I sign up? Oh, I have to do it on the web. That's fine. That's what happens with Amazon. That's what happens with Audible. That's what happens with Kindle. None of them do the in-app subscriptions because they don't want to share that money or that data with Apple. And so Netflix is kind of testing the waters to see, are we actually going to hurt ourselves if we do this? And you're right, it absolutely is testing. I don't know why they phrased it as testing the iTunes payment method when it's testing not using the iTunes payment method.
I think
neither here nor there. That's just choice of words. That doesn't matter. What matters is they're looking to see, will this degrade the uptake in new subscribers a significant amount at a time when they're under the gun, they're under the magnifying glass for that subscriber increase every quarter.
But also, if this pays off, if the results come in, because it could be, and the nice thing about the word testing is, let's say they find out like, oh, no, people are really, really sensitive. They never want to leave the Apple environment. They never want to go to our website to set up a separate account or whatever. We've learned our lesson, and we will not make the mistake of killing the golden goose of the United States market or whatever. But if the results they see indicate that, like, yeah, nobody cares, apparently Netflix is the bigger platform of these two. And so we can now, like, that is a way to massively increase increase profits without getting a single new extra subscriber, without growing one bit, just by being more efficient. And I think it's a smart move on their part.
Do you guys remember when Netflix made the announcement that they were going to just go into all international countries all at once a few years back?
Yeah.
Yep, we covered that.
I remember at the time, and I think it might have been it might have been Reed Hastings on a conference stage or something, talking about like how they're going into all of these individual countries and reaching out and finding the way that people buy things in each country. So they use these sorts of cards here. They use this sort of payment method here.
Oh, so that would be a justification for the international focus of the testing, is because you would have all these different types of marketplaces.
They're saying, because all of that was because not everybody internationally uses iOS. In fact, in countries like India, iOS is not all that popular relative to Europe and the United States. So they may be looking at it and going, well, hold on, we're not even picking up that many new users from iOS, and people are graduating to iOS later once we've already got them to subscribe to Netflix through another method. Plus, we got rid of it in Google Play, and that seemed to be okay. So, yeah.
Sorry, it sounds like we cut you off.
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's a good point, right? Is like this shows confidence that they have solved a lot of these very specific issues where, at first people were like, well, we don't use credit cards in this way online or whatever. And so this could be a lot of really good data for them.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think it was who was it? Perface for Radio in our IRC is like, does anybody here not sign up for Netflix through the website? Like I did. I know I did too. I'm not sure how many people actually sign up through the app these days anyway.
I think it's a very different thing if you're under 25. I think the 18 to 25 demographic, I wouldn't be surprised if upwards of 70% of iOS users sign up through the app. Be
interested how many people out there actually do sign up.
Cordkillers@gmail.com.
All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
I've been reading this name for a couple months now, and it just hit me Sunday. It's Norm Macdonald has a show.
Oh my gosh. Is that really what they're going for?
I don't know, but it definitely hit me.
Swear to God, if that's the opening theme song.
Norm Macdonald has a show is the name of his Netflix show, and it's going to debut on September 14th. Featuring Drew Barrymore, David Spade, Judge Judy, David Letterman, Jane Fonda, Chevy Chase, M. Night Shyamalan, Michael Keaton, Billy Joe Shaver, and Lorne Michaels all on one No, they're releasing all 10 episodes at once for this one, which is unusual for the talk shows. Even Letterman's, which are pre-recorded, they released slowly.
I think that is a very smart thing for them to do, to shake things up, because apparently they are seeing middling success in the talk show space, right? There's something about the Netflix binging experience that is not being met. Whereas, like, do you know that feeling, Tom, of discovering a good podcast, even if it's an interviews-based podcast or whatever, and you hear the most recent episode and you're like, oh, I'm so glad that I have 30 more to go through. I think they're treating a talk show like a podcast, which I think is a smart way to do it. Just release it all at once. Like, this is the season, view and listen at your leisure.
Yeah, I mean, the fear with that, I think, has always been what makes a talk show shine is when they can comment on the moment. But maybe that's overplayed. And the moments that are big enough for that to really make a difference happen so few and far between that you can hustle and get together for them and record a special episode, perhaps.
Well, and also Norm Macdonald, when I think of him, I don't think of like, oh, I sure do hope whatever he says is timely. I'm like, no, I hope it's funny, and I'm.
Do you follow him on Twitter though?
No, but is he really?
He live tweets like sports and news events, and he's great. Like, he's hilarious.
Oh, I believe it. it.
A movie about Scotland's Robert the Bruce will come to Netflix November 9th, starring Chris Pine as Robert the Bruce. It will screen at both the Toronto International Film Festival and the Venice Film Festival, as well as being one of those Netflix movies that gets a limited theater release in order to qualify for awards.
Good for you, Netflix.
And good for Robert the Bruce. It's so fun to say. Trailer for True Detective is out, showing Mahershala Ali as Detective Wayne Haynes. I'm sorry. Academy Award winning Mahershala Ali as Detective Wayne Haynes investigating a child kidnapping in the Ozarks Ozark's a popular place to tell crime stories these
Yeah, I was
days.
about to say, man, get ready for that Flintstones meets the Jetsons crossover moment.
Right, when Jason Bateman just comes wandering through in the scene. True Detective will arrive on HBO in January. Everybody's giving a lot of credit to this trailer and saying, oh, it looks like they're back on track.
So we talked about this. We loved season 1 of True Detective. Season 2, I think all of us ended up agreeing that there's something great in there if they had half the number of major characters, right?
Yeah, or something. Yeah, it's a diamond in the rough, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Or heck, if you want to use the Wire as an example, maybe they needed 5 times the number of major characters.
Right.
But regardless, there was something about having 4 superstars on there that just was a bit much, and it was hard to really latch onto. But this looks like we have one central figure that we're following.
Well, from what you can tell from the trailer, and that's why I'm a little hesitant to say they're back on track when it's like, well, I don't know. Yeah, sure. What they show in the trailer definitely looks promising, but
sure,
we don't know exactly what they're not showing us in the trailer. So I'm not saying I have a negative feeling about it. It does have the vibe of season 1 more than season 2.
Awesome.
Ars Technica has confirmed that among them are TV series Ars Technica has confirmed that Apple is bringing us a TV series based on Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. David Goyer, who was the screenwriter for The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, along with Josh Friedman, who created the TV series Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, will be the showrunners and also executive produce. Isaac Asimov's daughter Robin will also executive produce, and the series will be produced for Apple by Skydance Television. And Skydance, of course, made Altered Carbon for Netflix as well.
Can I confess that I never read the Foundation series, and I
to tell Harry Seldon predicted that you would have never read it.
I do know that joke. Okay, I do have that much. but how excited should I be based on the source material?
No one has been able to crack this. There have been many attempts.
It's the Dark Tower of sci-fi.
Yeah, it kind of is. There's no clear reason why it hasn't. Maybe it's been contracts. Maybe it's been fights over adaptations. It's not the kind of source material that is easily adapted to the screen because it's very conceptual. It's very philosophical.
But
so
if nothing else, you can at least absolutely confirm that this is being handled by a production engine that has made proven hits.
Yes.
With all of their television offerings here to date.
For sure.
I'm just digging on Apple TV, waiting on their hit.
Oh, no. I thought you were talking about Skydance, The Dark
No.
Knight.
I'm sure the production company. I'm sorry. I should have said
true.
distributor or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. No, I forgot. Hey, Brian, Apple's got another one to add to the slate.
Maybe this one will be the one.
Netflix announced Tiffany Haddish will record an hour-long comedy special for them. You can add her to the list of comedy stars that also include Ellen DeGeneres, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld, etc. Tiffany Haddish's special will come to Netflix later next year.
Man, can you imagine if you are somebody with an established brand and a platform, like how cheap must these be to produce, and what a great distribution partner. Netflix and comedy specials are a match made in comedy heaven.
Yeah, I mean, it has come to the point where I don't get surprised or think it's news that a comedian has signed up with Netflix. That's expected. At this point, it's more of like, oh, Tiffany Haddish, I like her, she's funny. I'll want to watch that one. They mentioned in the Engadget article about it though that Monique disagreed with Netflix's proposed payment for a stand-up special and couldn't reach it. So Netflix has even got to the point where they don't win the heart over of every comedian every time. Like they're that mature, I guess.
Yeah.
Entertainment Weekly, Deadline, and Variety all have sources that say Hulu is close to a deal with Warner to create a new season of Veronica Mars, including Kristen Bell and creator Rob Thomas.
Wow. Wow. So how would you feel if you were somebody that contributed to the Kickstarter in this case? Do you think we're going to see an echo of what happened to what's his name doing a sequel to Garden State? Not Zach Efron,
Braff?
the other one, Zach Braff. Yeah. The other Zach.
Zap Brannigan.
Yeah, Zap Brannigan. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, and I'm probably wrong as I say this, but my gut feeling is I would feel proud. Like, I saved Veronica Mars. I kickstarted a movie which got Rob Thomas in the room to talk to people about bringing it back to TV. So yay for me. I did it.
I think that's how I would feel as well. And I certainly hope that's how, like, for example, let's say tomorrow, all of a sudden, CNBC wants to make Cordkillers a gigantic freaking show. I would like to think that everybody who contributed felt like, oh, man, we made that happen.
Yeah.
Also, I probably should have aimed higher than CNBC.
Wow.
That's where I got stuck. I'm like, yeah.
Are they giving us one of the C's? Maybe that's why?
I mean, I guess we wouldn't have to do a mattress commercial on CNBC.
Our special guest, Jim
All right,
Kramer.
well, let's get to Eyes On. What have you watched recently that you loved, Brian?
Man, I did watch the latest episode of Deadwood. What's funny is I couldn't remember which one was the season finale, whether it was Preacher or Deadwood. So I watched Deadwood season 3, episode 10, thinking it was the end of Deadwood. And I was like, that's a really poor ending to the entire series. I mean, I could kind of see how it was a cliffhanger, but we'll talk about that in spoiler in time. Also, I did watch the Preacher finale. It was freaking fantastic. And we just watched Better Call Saul right before we went live.
You know what my pleasure viewing has been lately? Not that watching Better Call Saul, Deadwood, and Preacher and such are not pleasurable, but Eileen and I have been watching Fresh Off the Boat, which now has all its previous seasons available on Hulu. We were kind of held off watching it because they only had the past 5 seasons or the past 3 seasons or something. Anyway, they didn't have all the seasons. So then now that they have all of them, we've been watching it, and it is way funnier than I expected, and just something that when my brain needs to not have to work hard but still have an enjoyable show on, highly recommend Fresh Off the Boat.
Oh, separate thing. I continued. I took my daughter to school, and so I continued to listen to The Office. I think we're up to season 5 or whatever. But,
oh wow!
But there was this moment that I heard what sounded like a very un-office-y moment, and I wonder if anyone else felt this way or noticed, or maybe this is a sign of where they go, because I never saw the last few seasons.
I just finished rewatching The Office.
Okay. Do you remember that moment when they start to argue about the use of the word whomever, and all of a sudden it normally The Office is about, like, everything feels super realistic, and it's about the the drama and the awkwardness and all that stuff. But then all of a sudden there's this very precisely crafted 4-minute 7-member exchange about whomever versus whoever. That's a real word. That's not a real word. Like, our relationship isn't real. So it's like in that moment, or it's like, no. And then Toby jumps in and is like, no, direct object, the indirect object, and all this stuff. And it's like, it gets to advanced next level grammar, while also every example being a precisely written jab at another person with their own personal baggage in there. It was like all of a sudden they erupted into a finely crafted who's on first routine. And I was like that is so precise, and that's not what I normally think of The Office as being. It's really a delightful thing. Maybe in the after talk we can try see if we can dig it up and talk about it or something. I don't know.
Okay.
All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got an email from Rick with the show to be on the lookout for. He writes, Rick in Orlando here with something to watch, a show for on Netflix. It is a Swedish comedy drama called Bonus Family. It's a modern take on the Brady Bunch, but with 3 kids instead of 6 and no Alice. Excellent character development, even for some of the ancillary characters, like 2 bickering married therapists that the central couple see. There are some scenes that are hilariously funny, but plenty of drama and realism too. 2 seasons are out now. Hopefully more coming. Check it out. Thank you, Rick. I watched the first half of the first episode before the show. I didn't have time to watch the full episode, but it's really interesting. It's a little more complicated than Rick puts here. It's about this couple, both of whom, a man and a woman, are divorced, and so they both have their own children that they bring to this unified couple. And so it's not just about one family with 6 kids, it's about 3 families, basically, like this couple and the bonus parents. They don't say stepfather and stepmother, they say bonus family. And the ins and outs of how you work in that familial relationship. It's pretty interesting, and it doesn't like beat you over the head. Like I read it based on Rick's email here, and I started watching it. It took me a while to actually understand what was going on because it's a very subtle.
It didn't hold your hand and be all
right.
And,
It's very like media and res. So I think check that out. It's pretty cool. Bonus Family is now streaming on Netflix. There are 2 seasons most places in the world, though if you're in the Nordic region, you may only get season 1 as of this recording. Season 2 just aired in July, I believe. So it may be a little while before you guys get it.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Hey, folks, I want to remind you that I write books, and I hope you would like to read them because they're fun books. This one's about Maya, a salvager in a system long ago mined out and abandoned by the Gallium Corporation, but she finds a secret find and everybody tries to stop her from revealing it. But somehow, with the help of her friend Britt, she perseveres and is able to get it out there. If you want an adventure like that, go check out Gallium at tomsnewbook.com. Leave a review if you have read it, and be prepared for the audiobook coming within a month or 2.
Man, new sentence. You know what I do is when a book I haven't read is coming out, I sometimes will leave a review about my level of excitement. I'm reviewing like how much I love this author and how excited I am for the book to come out. That's something I do.
That is a separate sentence entirely that is really cool to think about if you're a person.
Shall we move on to the front lines?
Front lines!
Not a lot of front lines this week. Game of Thrones visual effects supervisor Joe Bauer told the Huffington Post, in 2 years, we'll be eligible for the Season 8 Work Award, which we're just beginning now. For a show to be eligible for the upcoming year's Emmys, it has to air the majority of its episodes by May 31st. So, doing the math, Gizmodo and everybody else figures if Game of Thrones won't be eligible until 2020, that means it won't be airing most of its 6 episodes until after May 31st.
Man, this is where we are. We're reading the tea leaves on what the implications are of what that means.
Your award is eligible in a couple years. Uh-huh.
I mean, this makes sense. If you're HBO and you have dunked on all other television, full stop, every other season of every other television show forever for 6 out of 7 seasons or 7 out of 8 seasons, then take your time, bros. You release when you're ready, right. and that'll be just fine.
Yep. I agree.
Oh, I'm supposed to read the next one. MoviePass sent an email to members with annual subscriptions last week that said on second thought, they won't be waiting until annual subscribers have to come up for a renewal to change the terms of their service. So just like monthly subscribers, annual subscribers, whether they want to or not, can only see 3 movies every 30 days. MoviePass only offered yearly subscription for a limited time 9 months ago. MoviePass is giving annual members 1 week until August 31st to either cancel their plan or shut up and accept the new monthly subscription and conditions.
I canceled my MoviePass a couple weeks back, and they tried to charge me on my new billing cycle, even though I actively never opted into their new plan. Man. Even though this day before, they sent me an email, oh, please opt into the new plan so you can still pay us money.
So the takeaway from all this is MoviePass doing all the things that somebody at the top of their game who's in a healthy financial position and definitely not about to implode are doing.
Certainly not acting like they're desperate for cash.
Certainly not acting like their gamble didn't pay off and they're currently imploding and about to sell the entire company for their mailing list.
Check out AMC's A+ or Cinemia. Hollywood Reporter says Jessica Jones showrunner Melissa Rosenberg has signed a multi-year deal with Warner Brothers Television to oversee production of a number of new series. I feel like this is a watershed moment where Netflix has finally been, on top of their game enough that they get to lose a big name to somebody else now.
Wait, with Warner Brothers Television. What's funny is
Melissa Rosenberg will still be EP of Jessica Jones, but she signed a deal with Warner that all her new stuff goes to Warner.
Man, I totally only skimmed this, and I just took it as a renewal. I thought it was Netflix offering one of their people more playground to play on, but the fact that they're willing to share, this is just how mature this marketplace is. And I'll tell you what, man, you feel it behind the scenes in a lot of these deal negotiations. There's a lot more flexibility behind the scenes at all levels. People understand that no, my personal brand is worth something. No. My ability to say whatever I want on my own platform is important. No. My ability to work on other projects is important. It's not like it was 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, there's those clauses that were sort of put in as safety nets that have become flexible, right? Because they're like, oh, well, we don't really mean you can't ever do that for 3 years. We just don't want you to do this one thing, right? Like that, it really is changing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some dispatches from the front. Tim writes, do you guys have any thoughts on which over-the-top service, especially thinking Sling TV, DirecTV Now, PlayStation Vue, has the best DVR functionality? Coming from a TiVo, the DirecTV Now one has been painful. The load times every time I skip forward or back is way too long, and there's no visual cues on if you've gotten to the point you want to reach. And that's only on the Roku. On the Apple TV, I haven't even figured out how to do this. I don't want to stay with cable, but if this is the average over-the-top DVR experience, I'm not sure it's worth the cost savings, especially for watching sports. Any idea if the PlayStation Vue or Sling TV one is better?
Full disclaimer, it matters when you encountered each of these services because they've all gotten better. I know that I had used Sling TV and then I canceled it and then I started it again and then I canceled it. And then I discovered PlayStation Vue, and from the moment I discovered PlayStation Vue, I have adored the DVR interface. It is so... Now, keep in mind, though, I'm not using a box. I'm using a desktop. It's very, very easy for me to mouse over and just click 10-second forwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If it's an AMC show, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 10 seconds forwards, and then find myself at the end of the commercial break.
But you did use the Apple TV DVR interface at my house when you watched Preacher.
Yeah, you had to explain, like, the trickiness. Like, okay, there's a thing you got to do.
Yeah, and maybe this is what's holding Tim up, because I'm not sure it might work the same way on DirecTV Now. You click the touchpad button on the Apple TV to stop, and then you slide to fast forward. It's not immediately obvious, I don't think, to a lot of people, but it actually works really well once you get the hang of it.
So you can't do the clicking on the side to skip ahead 10 seconds with that?
No, you click on the touchpad on the front at the top.
But you have to slide. You don't.
And then you use the touchpad to slide like you would a mouse.
So, but there are, like, on the Apple TV, you can click on the sides of the touchpad.
I see what you're saying.
To go 10 seconds at a time. Does that work?
Yeah, I find that to be just nightmare inducing.
Yeah, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd rather slide because it's like I'm close. Here we go. Yeah. Boom.
I guess if it's
like 3 slides maximum for me usually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So what about you? Do you have a favorite? And make sure to give caveats on when the last time you played with any of them are.
Favorite DVR?
Yeah.
Tom?
Oh, I thought you were talking to Bryce. I have not used Sling TV or DirecTV Now in a long time, so I can't say if they've improved. Obviously, Tim is using DirecTV Now 1 and he doesn't like it. They're none of them as good as a TiVo, but I will agree with Brian that the PlayStation Vue one is totally workable for me and has improved over time. One problem with PlayStation Vue is if I wanted to go back and hear something, a lot of times if I went back too many times, it got confused and crashed and I had to start the whole thing over again. It has not been doing that for me in months, probably since last fall.
I'm going to have to disagree with you because now keep in mind the last time I used
You're
a
going
TiVo.
to disagree with my opinion?
Yeah, sorry. That's a real thing. That's
I mean,
happening.
That's just my opinion that I like it. I don't understand how you
Sorry,
can
I'm going to have to express that I have a different opinion than yours. It's been a hot minute since I used a TiVo, but PlayStation Vue DVR is as good as I remember my TiVo being.
Okay.
Like I am as happy, if not happier.
I still think the DVR on the boxes, whether it's the TiVo or one of the cable branded ones, are solid. You always know what they're going to do. They may not be as functional. I think that's what you're hitting on, which is probably true. But I don't think I don't think that these services are as predictable, as solid in what they're supposed to do. They still crash out and do funky things every once in a while.
Yeah. Bill near Athens, Georgia writes us saying, what is your biggest binge watching session? I know I watched all of season 7 of Game of Thrones in one day. Have you had any similar experiences? Were you proud or ashamed of the accomplishment afterwards? Man, I have a very precious memory of in the early days after I quit my day job and Bonnie quit her day job. And so this is at the time that it was most important that we be working as hard as we can to get started. And yet, in full disclosure, this story involves pre-streaming services. Maybe this is what, 2000 or 2001? No. It must have been around 2003. But
kids, binging's been around longer than you thought. Okay?
Piracy. So this is all VHS quality piracy, 320 by 240, watching on a cathode ray tube television, a CRT. And I remember watching just one more episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and being confused by the sun rising outside. And it was one of the most delightful things because both of us knew that we shouldn't. And yet here we were, and we had spent all night up watching Buffy. It was fantastic.
I love this question because, especially in comparison to your answer, my favorite binge watching experience memory was getting to the end of a season of Alias and realizing we did not own the DVD box set for the next season, grabbing the phone book, looking up the number for Borders, calling Borders and saying, do you have season whatever of Alias? And they said, yeah, but we're only open another hour. Jumping in the car, racing to the mall, going in and getting the person to open the glass case where the box sets were kept and buying that DVD box set and running home so we could watch the next episode of Alias.
Yeah. What about you, Bryce?
Oh man, funny enough, we've been talking about, I just rewatched The Office, but I remember I would pirate copies of The Office and burn them to DVD and watch it with my family. And we had more than a couple of weekends where we would just do that. Or the 4400.
I don't binge as much as I used to. I don't know if it's just me or if it's Eileen, but we will watch maybe 2 or 3 episodes in a row before we have to take a break.
I mean, it's almost as though you have other obligations these days and you're a grown man.
Well, I had other obligations. I was not as grown, in the past, but I think it's just our tolerance for, as we get older, our tolerance for the information processing is getting lower. I don't know.
That's interesting. I also think that there's, I think you stay on top of the things, as you get older, you stay on top of the stuff you're really excited about. And but
it's not like we stop and then go do something responsible. We stop and then play on our phones, or you know what? That's another factor too. Maybe there's enough alternative entertainment around you at all times. Right. Jason from Connecticut says, "Hey guys, when traveling with the fam in my Swagger, which is his family in his minivan." It's a brand name of a minivan. The kids use the built-in DVD system. Nowadays, movies seem to only come with Blu-ray and digital codes and no longer include the DVD. Any suggestions on a way to get the movies in my car legally without buying 2 copies of the movie? My Swagger does have an HDMI port and a 110-volt plug. I was using my Western Digital TV hub, but have since lost the power cord, and those are all older movies. I suppose I could rip the current movies, but was looking for a legal option. Many of the services have offline options such as Vudu, but the kids' iPhones have limited storage and won't hold a full movie. Plus, Vudu limits the amount of devices. The only other option I could come up with is a cheap Blu-ray player. Any better solutions?
Number one, Bryce was awesome enough to find on eBay Tom found this a power supply for $4.99.
Yeah, get a new power supply. I totally sympathize with Jason on this kind of thing where you're like, power supply sounds like it's a problem to try to find. So I did the work for you. I found the power supply for your Western Digital. Just click the link in the show notes. You can buy it for $5 on eBay.
Get it in the show notes. That's awesome.
Cordkillers.com.
Second of all, let's put things back in perspective here. when I traveled halfway across the country from Houston to Fort Walton Beach, Florida, to visit my grandparents. We had this giant, 1970s looking box van, and my dad hooked up our Betamax VHS player and my TurboGrafx 16. And hooked it up to the CRT in the back where we sat without seatbelts on because responsible. And we did all that stuff. Look, man, just get a cheap Blu-ray player. They're like $30 and just plug it in. You got to plug in everything.
Just buy an iPod Touch. Download movies from Vudu on that thing and plug it in with an HDMI adapter there.
Well, it sounds to me like he's already buying Blu-ray movies and has digital codes. Or I guess
he's got the digital code. So then you just download the digital code on the iPod Touch. Boom. They can do all kinds of other stuff with it. That would be another way to do it. But actually, the Western Digital hard drive is a great way to do the same thing too.
Yeah, good deal. This is my turn. Hi, Tom, Brian, Bryce, and possible guest, which there isn't one. Back in early 2017, I wrote in to tell you about my then brand new website for UK cord cutters, cordbusters.co.uk, that covers news, guides, and tips for local cord cutters.
Oh, cool.
18 months later, I'm writing in again to tell you, and boast a little, congratulations, that Cordbusters is now nominated for an award as part of the annual UK Money Bloggers Conference, which will be held in November as a, quote, best specialist money blog.
All right.
This would never have happened if it weren't for the inspiration that he got from Cordkillers, so thank you so much for helping bring the gospel of cord cutting to this side of the pond. He gives a link. Congratulations very much, Or Goran. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's great, man. I'm so happy for you. All the best. Congratulations. Cheers and everything. Yay. Woo. Hey, folks, that's it for us, but the party doesn't end. If you want more Cord Killers, you can get Spoiler in Time early at patreon.com/cordkillers. You can get the after talk with me and Bryce and Brian. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv. Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll cut your cords again next week.
Huzzah. Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a name.
You just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your name in pixels on the internet.
There's some classic names in there. But some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode to be one of these amazing people. Like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.